Hello and good morning. This is looking down at the National Weather Service All Hazards map as of Wednesday morning, October 23rd. And given how much weather, the contiguous U.S. has dealt with over the last number of weeks, I think it's good news to see this map largely clear, opposed for some small concerns on each coastline here. Now, looking specifically at our concerns in the west, you can see the blue colors kind of percolating in there in Oregon and Northern California. That occurs as we get into kind of spring or fall here for cold temperature, freeze, and frost concerns. So the light blue color that we can see there in the Willamette Valley, that is a frost advisory. Many of the surrounding areas there. To the east of that, over along the river and just kind of south and east, kind of the Pendleton area, we have a freeze watch that's been issued for Thursday morning. And then in far northern California, a freeze warning, a frost advisory, and a freeze watch, respectively, in some of the counties there. So getting into October, we expect these. It's not out of the question, not terribly early in terms of the cold temperatures, but something to talk about nonetheless. Now, this morning, we're not seeing those freezing conditions, and I doubt we're seeing too much frost in some of these areas. These advisories more so prompted for tomorrow morning, Thursday the 24th, and then lingering for some of these areas into Friday, the 25th. I'll be perhaps a little bit warmer for the Willamette Valley specifically. Now this morning, something keeping the temperatures a little bit higher, and maybe even counterintuitively, are the high clouds that are spreading over the area here. You typically think high clouds, maybe keeping the temperatures down a little bit, but at night they can trap heat in the lower atmosphere, particularly when we're talking about these freezing temperatures. And so a lot of the stations underneath these high cirrus clouds that we can see on the infrared satellite are recording temperatures, in the low 40s, maybe the high upper 30s here. And in fact, if we just kind of look very closely at the areas that are not under the influence or have not been under the influence of the high clouds here in the evening, those are actually our coldest temperature readings here along the coast of Oregon and Washington, down into the mid-30s, which has allowed some fog to form there along the coast. Now, the interior stations, I know I can imagine these are hard to see on the video here. I'll try to make them a little bit bigger. But nonetheless, seeing high 30s, low 40s in a lot of these areas where those advisories are active now. So more so watching for tomorrow morning. That's the expectation for the cold temperatures here. If you look over at the National Weather Service minimum temperature forecast for this evening, particularly for tomorrow morning, we can see low 30s, 33 degrees Fahrenheit forecasted for the middle and upper Willamette Valleys. A little bit higher than that in Portland, certainly frost concerns there regardless. And then over east toward the Columbia River, looking at temperatures near freezing as well. And then continuing that down into far northern California and some of the valleys far to the north of the Central Valley. So those are the cold temperature readings, or the forecast for tomorrow morning. If we jump over and look at Friday, pretty similar, not a huge change in the Willamette Valley or east of the Cascades, but perhaps a little bit warmer in northern California. As we push through the weekend, we have another system coming in, and ahead of that, temperatures are going to be warming up, so that will reduce the frost concerns. But that brings our attention to the precipitation that we're expecting quickly here through the end of today, Wednesday, seeing a quick hitter move through parts of eastern and southeastern Oregon, particularly the Snake River Valley of Idaho, with a small amount of rainfall expected in most of the areas here, perhaps a quick shot of snow in the mountainous regions. If I take this forecast further out in the future, you can see that next system coming into view on Saturday, the 26th, finally bringing rainfall to the Willamette Valley, some of the coastal areas in far northwest Oregon, Saturday morning, western Washington through the day on Saturday, before increasing in intensity as we go into Sunday morning. So more widespread, moderate to heavier rainfall now pushing into the Cascades, the coastal ranges of Oregon, now getting into parts of northwest California, much of Washington, even areas perhaps east of the Cascades there, and still lingering in terms of that precipitation, at least in the foothills and the Cascades and western Oregon, into parts of Sunday evening. Ultimately, Monday with another kind of shot just on the back end here coming through on Monday p.m. So kind of a long-lasting system here. There's a big upper-level trough moving in. There's a lot of pieces to this. So this rainfall getting into Idaho, of course, as well, and parts of northern Nevada, and perhaps even the Sierra Nevadas. That has been kind of hit and miss as each bottle run has come in, but perhaps some snow, light amounts for the Sierra Nevada. When all is said and done, expecting quite a bit of precipitation to fall across parts of the Pacific Northwest here. I think this forecast is a little bit overdone here from the NBM, the National Blend of Models, but certainly expecting amounts close to an inch in the Willamette Valley, perhaps some decent measurable precip just east of the Cascades, something around a tenth to a quarter of an inch along the Columbia River or even parts of the Yakima River Valley as well. Again, not too much, right? We're still in the rain shadow here, but perhaps measurable precipitation, and then getting into parts of the Snake River Valley as well. Certainly higher amounts expected in the mountainous regions of the coastal Oregon and the Cascades east of the Willamette Valley. And you can see here, even from this latest forecast, some precipitation. Some of this would be falling as snow getting into parts of Northern California as well. If we do jump over and look at that snowfall forecast from that same model, you can see the Cascades getting a healthy amount of snow, even some of the elevations here in Idaho, eastern Oregon, and the Sierra Nevadas as well. If we look out further into next week, behind that next trough that's coming in, we'd naturally expect temperatures to come down and get a little bit cooler going through the next work week. And we see that looking at Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next work week, temperatures again approaching freezing in the Snake River Valley, along the Columbia River Valley, east of the Cascades in Oregon and Washington, up through the Yakima Valley and the Willamette Valley as well. Now, hard to forecast specifically a frost or freeze this far out, a week out, but certainly the potential is there, even getting over into parts of western Nevada near the Reno area, and then certainly the Golden Triangle up by Montana as well. Temperatures now below freezing in the forecast, at least from this ECMWF forecast model run. Now, well beyond that, as I kind of wrap up here, if we look out even beyond that into November, after Halloween here, we're seeing a little bit of a calm down in the kind of activity that we're expecting over the next 5 days. And what I mean by that is this is a forecast of the upper level jet stream here from the ECMWF. And a lot of focus that we've seen on the Pacific Northwest will be shifting to the north over British Columbia. So as I took that forecast all the way out into November, now we see the flow coming on shore up in Canada, kind of breaking down into a large trough here over parts of the central U.S., perhaps bringing some more active weather to the eastern part of the country, which is rather calm right now. This would leave the west a little bit more moderate, seasonal in terms of temperatures, maybe a little bit cooler in parts of the northwest, but certainly drier for that first week of November, and seeing good agreement from the models there. Temperature-wise, at least that first week, likely looking at a little bit cooler temperatures here, perhaps not as many deep cold concerns, but certainly not a ton of warmth in the forecast to start November. So the cooler and drier start to the next month and a break in the active pattern. I'll leave it there today. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you all again soon.